Welcome to the very first episode of Big Dick Energy. Now, you're probably going to ask, James, why is it called Big Dick Energy? It's because I want you, by listening to this podcast, the whole goal is to get you walking around like you're 10 foot tall and 12 inches long, right? I want you to imagine that. Imagine how that feels. That is how I want you to feel every single day. I want you to be beaming with energy. I want you to be beaming with confidence. I want you to have maximum levels of testosterone. I want you to have no anxiety. I want you to just be 10 foot tall and 12 inches long. That's what we're going for on this podcast. And what we're going to be doing is I'm going to be breaking down every single week one problem that I see. Now, this could be from a new client who's joined up with us, who has a problem which I think could relate to some of you guys, or from questions which you have asked me yourself, okay? How can you ask questions? Jump into our Facebook group. Just jump on Facebook and type in High Performance Men, or shoot me a message, or book in a call on the website jcfcoaching.com, and you can tell us about the problems. I'll go through and I'll gladly go and solve all these things for you. Every single week, I'm going to be dropping some of these bad boys out, which are going to hopefully give you an immense amount of value really, really quickly. Now, today's episode is courtesy of a bloke called Ryan. Ryan's just joined our crew and he came to us. He's a really, really successful plumber, doing really, really well. However, he found that his anxiety and his stress was ruining his ability to make any decisions. He found that he was constantly in analysis paralysis. That meant that anytime he had a decision, he just couldn't make a decision. He couldn't do anything because his mind was racing a million miles an hour. He was struggling to sleep because his head was just keeping him up all night. He was having when he did actually sleep, he was waking up through the night with imaginary problems, things that didn't actually happen. Like he thought he forgot to pay somebody, thought he didn't do a certain job. These things were constantly keeping him up all the time, and he just couldn't get past this worry, this constant stress, this constant anxiety. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to break this down for you, exactly how we're going to fix it for Ryan and how we've done it for many, many hundreds of guys before. Now, for those of you who know my story, you would know that I dealt with a fair bit of my own crap and my own anxiety in the past. And you know what's really, really weird about it is that I didn't actually know that I had anxiety. I just thought that I was a little bit socially retarded. Like I just thought that I was not socially capable. I was not inept, and I just didn't understand people. I remember going into certain situations where like I'd be talking to someone, and my hand would start shaking. No, not just girls. I know I haven't never been the greatest with the ladies, although my beautiful wife would, make you think otherwise. It wasn't just women. I was just talking to anybody whatsoever, and I was always shaking, and I'd have what I call foot in mouth syndrome. Now I'm sure some of you guys could probably relate to that. It's where I'd say something and I'd immediately regret it, and I'd feel like putting my own foot down my mouth because what I said was so bad and such a clanger. I used to do that all the time, and I found that my head was always racing. I could never be present in a conversation, and I wouldn't actually enjoy being social. And so I used to try and isolate myself or remove myself from social settings because it just sucked. Like I just didn't feel competent. I used to just embarrass myself all the time. And I'm sure some of you guys can relate to that. And so with the anxiety, that lasted with me for many, many years because I just didn't know what it was. So the first thing that we need to know is are you actually going through anxiety right now? Do you actually have it? And I'm just going to rattle off a couple of really, really simple symptoms. And by the way, you should do the life audit because this is going to, tell you this as well. I'm going to rattle off a couple of really simple symptoms, and you're going to be able to go and say, do I have any of these symptoms? Yes or no. And then if you do, then you can start, making some of the steps to fix this. The very first thing would be, do you find that every now and then when you're in a certain situation where you're uncomfortable, you just start sweating or you start shaking or your head starts racing really, really quickly and you start living in the future? One of the characteristics of anxiety is we're constantly predicting fears. We're constantly predicting things that could go wrong, and we're always assuming the worst case scenario. And when we start doing that, it can be really, really harmful for us. The next thing, do you often find that you can't switch your brain off? Is your head just running constantly 24/7, 365? Do you have issues with sleeping? Do you start getting digestive issues? Do you either not poo at all or rarely poo? Do you poo, too often? Do you start getting diarrhea? Do you get gas? Do you get large amounts of bloating? These are the things that are all associated with stress and with anxiety. Those are some of the basic, most easy things. And if you do have some of those symptoms, then there's a high chance that this episode is going to help you out a hell of a lot. Okay. So when it comes down to anxiety, what do we normally do to fix it? Well, the first thing that most blokes take is, like me, is we kind of stick our head in the sand and we don't do anything. There's this really weird bullshit attitude, which was far more prevalent. Thankfully, it's getting much better now. But there was this really weird bullshit attitude where we thought, oh, it's just anxiety, toughen up, harden up, get on with it, stick your head down, bum up, get back to work. It's the dumbest thing that you can do. The reason being is because anxiety is not something that just goes away all of a sudden. It's not like you turn 32 and then all of a sudden it's gone, right? Anxiety will be with you forever until you manage it. And the reason why it's always going to be with you is because it's evolutionary. It's there for a reason. We need to have anxiety. It's very, very important. The reason is this. Back when we were cavemen, right? All that we needed to do was eat, sleep, and root. Life was simple, okay? And back then, we also had things that could kill us on a daily basis. For example, not having food would kill us. Starvation, no good. We would have other men who would try and kill us, probably women too. We would have saber-toothed tigers and animals and things that were trying to kill us. And so back then we had a goal, which was literally just eat, sleep, and root. And the only things that would stop us from reaching that goal were other people, starvation, or other animals, right? Trying to kill us. Cool. So what our body developed was we developed this response so that whenever we were threatened by another person or another animal, or whenever we were starving, we would shift into fight or flight, aka anxiety, stress. And so when we were in this response, we would have heightened sensitivity. So we'd be really, really reactive. We could be really, really aggressive. We would run really fast. Our body would be primed to defend ourselves so that if we were starving, we would be able to go and chase that deer if it came past, even though we haven't eaten for a month. Or if somebody was, coming over and their tribe was coming to attack ours, we could either stand up and go belt the shit out of them, or we would shit ourselves and run, okay? Same thing goes with the tiger, okay? So this whole thing it's evolutionarily built into us. And the thing is that these days, we don't really have many saber-toothed tigers to come and eat us anymore. We don't starve, and very, very rarely are we actually in a fight with another man when we're actually going to get killed. Right? So this whole response, which was really, really good back then, is the reason why we survived, is now the reason for our anxiety. And the thing is that this is ingrained within your DNA, bro. Like, this isn't going anywhere. You're not going to just get rid of this. You need to manage it, and it's something that you need to live with. So sticking your head in the sand is not going to do anything, right? The next thing that a lot of people do is they drink coffee. So one of the things that happens with anxiety is we often don't sleep well. And because we don't sleep well, we feel tired. There's this thing that I call tired but wired. It's where you're like on autopilot. You're in a bit of a daze. You're really, really exhausted, but you can't sleep and you can't relax either. And so what we start doing is we start drinking coffee. Now, what coffee does, coffee contains caffeine. And what caffeine does, it's a central nervous system stimulant. And this creates adrenaline throughout the body. When we have adrenaline flooding throughout our body, we go into fight or flight. So it's actually creating more and more and more anxiety, which isn't good. And the third thing that we start doing is we start drinking, taking drugs, smoking weed, all these sorts of things. Because, we feel more confident when we do so. We feel more relaxed. Have a couple of beers, take the edge off. Go smoke a doobie because you're just ready to chill out. Go have a line of rack because you'll be more confident. We do these things, but the issue is that when you take these drugs, yes, you feel great. I'm not going to deny that taking cocaine or smoking a doobie or having a beer doesn't feel good. It feels great at the time. However, half an hour later, an hour later, a day later, a week later, you're still paying for that. And your anxiety, which was gone while you were high, is now going to come back with a vengeance, and it's going to get worse and worse and worse. And this is one of the ways that addiction starts, because all of a sudden, instead of just taking a little bit of, having a little bit of rack or having a pinger or smoking or drinking, instead of just doing that to take the edge off, you all of a sudden get to a stage where if you're not smoking, if you're not drinking, if you're not doing drugs, all of a sudden you feel really, really bad. And so it starts becoming something that you're actually reliant upon. So there's some of the really, really common things that we do that just simply don't work. A lot of people also go and try like counseling, therapy, and psychiatry and trying all this sort of stuff. And I'm a really big fan of it. But there's one really big caveat to any service ever, is that the person that you're talking with has to actually be good, right? Psychology works, psychiatry works, counseling works, all these things work. There is no denying that any of these systems are not really, really brilliant. But the issue is that I went to uni and I studied with a lot of these people. Some of them were brilliant and some of them were, I wouldn't go talk to them myself and talk about my feelings with them. And that's a really, really big problem, is that when you go and see someone, it's not a matter of just going to see a shrink or going to see a counselor. You need to find someone who's going to be really, really good. And in my experience from having worked with 7,000 odd guys, well, I mean, there's a reason why 7,000 people are coming to us for help as opposed to going to their local counselor, all right? I'm not going to shit on them, but I just want to be really, really honest and upfront about it. I like what they do. I like the theory. I like the things they learn. Just sometimes people in those professions have an issue with executing, right? Let's say that. And so what can we actually do in order to fix our anxiety? What's going to work? So what I like to do is I always like to break things down to the most basic level and be simple. I'm not a smart guy, right? I'm far from smart. I've just managed to get through life from learning from really, really extremely brilliant people, and I have an uncanny ability to make really, really difficult things really, really simple, okay? And so that's what I'm going to do for you guys today, is make this really, really simple. If you're worrying, if you're stressing out, if you're getting anxiety, if you find that your head is just constantly racing and it's not allowed and it's preventing your quality of life, the number one thing that you need to do is you need to fix your nervous system. So going back to what we talked about before with the caveman stage, right? When we were cavemen, we developed this ability to go fight or flight. Well, there are actually two stages in this. One is rest and digest, and the other is fight or flight. This is a part of the nervous system. This is regulated by the nervous system, a specific part of the nervous system called the autonomic nervous system. Autonomic means without thinking. So this part of the nervous system isn't conscious. Our nervous system as a whole controls every single thought, feeling, action, reaction, movement, every single thing that we do. And some of it we think about, some of it we don't. Some of our nervous system involves, hey, should I go and have this drink right now? And that would be a conscious decision. So that's not autonomous. The other one is when you see a tiger and all of a sudden you defecate and you shit in your pants and then turn around and run. You do that without thinking, right? So it's autonomous, right? Or if you're in a situation where you're nervous, like me, with my hand that used to shake, right? I wasn't thinking about shaking my hand. My hand was just doing that because that's what my nervous system was actually telling me to do. So in this autonomic nervous system, the autonomous nervous system, without thought, there are two states. One is called sympathetic, and the other one's called parasympathetic. Now, don't ask me why they're called sympathetic and parasympathetic, because the sympathetic state or the fight or flight state is not very sympathetic, all right? In fact, it's a fucking prick in our modern day and age. But the sympathetic nervous system is the fight or flight nervous system. This is the stressed out nervous system. The parasympathetic nervous system is the rest and digest nervous system, or the chill out one, okay? And so what happens when we're anxious and we have anxiety is we're stuck in fight or flight. And when we're stuck in fight or flight, things just go haywire for us. So I'm just going to rattle a couple of these things off which are happening. Number one, your adrenaline goes through the roof, right? Number two, your cortisol goes through the roof. Cortisol is a hormone, and what it does is job in the body is to liberate energy. And what does that mean? It's there to burn fat and burn muscle. However, what ends up happening over an extended period of time, if you're chronically anxious, just like Ryan was, right, the guy who inspired me to do this video, if you're chronically anxious, your cortisol will go up to a really, really high level. And then you start getting fat. Your midsection starts expanding. You start getting more anxious, right? And you start getting more into this state of fight or flight. Your sleep gets poorer. Inflammation throughout your body actually ends up going up. Damage through your body starts going up. You start getting sore joints. You start feeling tired. You start feeling run down. All these things start happening. And there's this really, really interesting thing that goes on with cortisol, is that when cortisol goes up, guess what goes down? Testosterone, right? So not only when your cortisol is going up, is it going to make you fat, right? Because your testosterone is going to go down, it's going to be harder for you to maintain muscle. You're going to be less confident. You're going to feel like a bit of a bitch, right? You're not going to have the same sex drive that you used to. You're not going to be able to maintain a hard like you used to. Have you ever been really, really stressed and you're about to get intimate into love-making mode with a woman or a man? And you're in this stage where, like, you know, you want to go on to the next move, but you just can't. Like, your mind's willing, but your body's just not playing ball. Well, yeah, that's what's happening, is like you're stressed out, your testosterone's low, and it's having a whole heap of impacts, downstream impacts on your ability to maintain an erection. Cool? So what we want to do is we want to make sure that we get out of this fight or flight stage, and we want to get in to the rest and digest stage, okay? is what I've got for you guys. I've got this video, which you must watch. You really, really need to watch it. If you haven't watched it, if you haven't even watched it recently, because we constantly update this and make it better, there's a video called The Hierarchy of Health on jcfcoaching.com. It's free download. You can just go get it right now. So just go into jcfcoaching.com, go into the free resources tab, and you'll see that there's the Hierarchy of Health there. You need to watch that right now. In fact, all the free resources will help you, but specifically that one, I want you to go and download that and watch that right now. Hit pause, go and get that. Make sure that you have access to that, okay? Because what the Hierarchy of Health does is it runs you through how this nervous system works and how you can manipulate it in order to beat low energy stress and anxiety. It's going to be super, super helpful for you guys, okay? So what is it that we can actually do in order to fix this nervous system and get it working? First of all, everything you learned in the life audit, right? That's the very first thing that you're going to do. Get rid of stuff which is going to jack you up and it's going to push you into a fight or flight stage, put you into a sympathetic stage. So that means, number one, coffee. Get rid of it, right? I used to love my coffee. I used to be the biggest coffee snob. I used to go around, I used to spend a god-awful amount of money on coffee every day. I was drinking like 4 or 5 a day. And guess what? Sleep was shit. I was anxious. That was when I had my bipolar phase. That wasn't fun. A large part of that was due to how much coffee I was having. I ended up getting IBS too. I was smashing a stack of coffee, a heap of coffee, right? You don't want to do it. As much as I love coffee, I still walk past a cafe and I say, oh my God, that smells so good. It smells amazing. Yes, it does. I'm not going to deny it. It smells amazing, tastes amazing. But does it smell and taste so good that it's worth being anxious for? For me, it wasn't it, right? I didn't want to do that. And for you, you're going to have to make up your own mind on that. But if you want to fix the anxiety, just get rid of coffee. It's such an easy, low-hanging fruit. And fuck, it's going to save you a hell of a lot of money as well, right? Next thing after this, eat better. There is a link between the digestive system and the brain. This is called the gut-brain axis. So our gut actually regulates the way that we think, feel, act, and it has this really strong interplay with the nervous system. Now, have you ever noticed someone who eats really crap all the time? Just eats really, really bad. They're like not in good shape. They don't feel good. Have you ever noticed that they get a little anxious? They get a little bit moody, a little bit up and down. Sometimes they get a little bit aggro, a little bit aggressive, right? If you've noticed that, right, you've seen that, it's very, very normal. Whenever you're eating bad food, whenever you're drinking bad drinks, things which irritate your digestive system, make you feel bloated, gassy, upset your bowel movements, right, that is always going to play a role on your gut-brain axis, which therefore may impact your anxiety. So the best thing you can do is start eating better. And what do I mean by eating better? Now, you don't have to go eat bloody chicken and broccoli 5 times a day. I'm not going to go talk about any bodybuilding stuff. I finished doing bodybuilding however many years ago. For those of you who don't know, I'm a pro bodybuilder. I still technically am a pro bodybuilder, but I haven't been doing bodybuilding for years. But I'm not going to talk about any of that sort of stuff, right? What I'm going to talk about is eating well. And what do I mean by eating well? Eating well, eating healthy, eating smart means just not eating like a dickhead. If you look at your food and say, am I a dickhead for eating this? And the answer is yes, don't eat it. If you look at your food and say, is this going to make me feel really good? Am I going to feel good from this? Is this going to nourish my body? Is this going to put me in the best position to have big dick energy? Yes or no? If the answer is yes, do it. If the answer is no, you're being a dickhead. Don't do it. It's really, really simple. Okay? That's all you got to do. The third thing, incorporating breath work. Breath work is amazing. So our body is regulated by our breath, and our nervous system and our breath are really, really tightly regulated. You'll notice, like even through this interview, like you'll see me pause and I'll have a big breath through my nose, because if I don't, I start getting really, really high. If we don't breathe well, particularly through our nose, things start getting haywire really, really quickly. So there's this really, really simple type of breathing that I'm going to teach you to do right now. It's called box breathing, right? What we're going to do is we're going to breathe in for 4 seconds. We're going to hold for 4 seconds. We're going to breathe out for 4 seconds, hold for 4 seconds. All done through the nose. You ready? Hold for 4 seconds. Breathe out for 4 seconds through your nose. Hold for 4 seconds. And that's it. And you just repeat that over and over and over again. If you're feeling anxious, you're feeling stressed out, it's going to bring you down immediately. And if you are struggling to slow your thoughts, if you can't get to sleep, if you're waking up throughout the night, just keep practicing this over and over and over. And to start with, it'll give you short relief. And then as you get healthier and healthier and you start optimizing this nervous system and taking you out of fight or flight and putting you into rest and digest, it'll get better and better and longer until you're super chill all the time. And that's probably going to be the best thing that you can do. Those are the 3 easiest things that you can do right now to get yourself better. Okay, So that's your homework. If you have anxiety, if you are stressed out, I want you to just focus on those 3 things and those 3 things only. At the same time, make sure that you've done the life audit, make sure that you've got access to the hierarchy of health. On that note, guys, I'm going to leave you to it. If you have any questions at all, fire them through. If you have any topics that you wish for me to discuss, fire them through. If you want to have a chat with me, shoot me a message on Facebook, or alternatively on jcfcoaching.com, you can book in a time to chat with my team or I, just 5 minutes. If you just want to have a yarn, you want to get some ideas, you want to get our opinions, you want to learn from us, feel free to just book in there. It's called book a quick call. You can have a chat with us, and we'll be more than happy to help you out. On that note, guys, I'll leave you all to it. Have a wonderful, wonderful day. I hope this helps. I hope this gets you to big dick energy.